Welcome to the D-League podcast, the Development League. I'm your host, Sam Coleman, and I am devoted to your development. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to talk about resolving conflict. Conflict is a healthy thing. How do we handle it? How do we deal with it? And how do we move beyond it? I'm your host, Sam Coleman. Thank you guys so much again for spending 7 minutes with Sam in this series of focusing on our business, our family, our social life, our mindset, our physical health, our spiritual health, business and money, all the things that I consider to be the foundation of growth in our life, the things that consume so much of our time and attention. And resolving and handling conflict in our home life, in our main environment, in our sphere of influence could probably be one of the most taxing things that affects every other area of our life. I have real estate agents that come up to me all the time and they say, Sam, I'm struggling. How do I get my spouse to be on board with me and support me when I need to, I want to do more open houses. I want to go to more events and network with people, but I feel like my time is just constricted. I'm contracting with my time because my family is demanding that I be more present. And this could create some type of conflict. And I can be the first person to tell you that I have been there. I've been there. Me and my wife, I've stayed up late. I've been on the dates and I've had to put the Heisman up, because I had to take a phone call. The waitress is coming to take an order. And I'm like, yeah, 1 second. Yes, we can go ahead and negotiate 10 days due diligence. And I'm in this moment of being there, but not being present. I'm in this moment that has now created some conflict and distance between me and my spouse, between me and my family. And now I have to make a decision. How do I move beyond this? How do I handle this? How do I deal with it? And how do I move beyond it? And I can go on. We can probably all relate to several things that have happened in our lives that have created a level of conflict, and we haven't figured out how to resolve it, but yet it continues to come up like a pattern. And it is a pattern. How do we handle conflict? Because what we resist sometimes will persist, and just because we don't pay attention to it doesn't mean that it goes away. Just because we may not resolve a conflict, we may sweep it under the rug, but it often becomes a big pile under that rug. And then at some point we trip over it and then that rug comes out and then now all the previous conflicts come up as well. How do we deal with that? You may be at the pile now where we can't even handle one conflict because we never resolved the 25 other ones over the past several years. Or maybe you're in the beginning of a new relationship and then it's kind of weird. Like we were just so in love and then now we had this conflict, but I still love you, but the way that you did that, I'm like, I don't really know. Did I make the right decision? And I just want to express to you that conflict is healthy. Conflict allows us, and it shapes our character. Conflict allows us to hold that mirror up and reveals ourselves to ourselves. How you handle conflict is very important. So the first thing I want to address is when conflict comes up, how am I going to respond? My first knee-jerk reaction to anything that stirs me inside, that gets my blood boiling, that gets my temperature rising, if my wife pushes a button and it makes me, it fuels me in a negative way, I need to address that before I address my wife. Before I address the situation, I need to address myself. Before I decide to point my finger at my wife, I need to point my finger at myself. I need to get myself under control, because me responding with anger, with frustration, with any type of animosity towards my wife does not help the situation. I want to be, it should be us against the conflict, not us against us. And then the conflict goes under the rug with the other 25 things. How do I get on the same team as my wife? How do I express empathy so that now I can go to her and say, hey, rather than, put your boxing gloves down. I don't want to box you. It doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong, because the question always comes up, do you want to be right or do you want to be in love? It does not matter who is right or who is wrong. If there's a situation and someone feels wrong or right or wrong about it, it doesn't matter. The conflict needs to be resolved. So I go to my wife and I say, listen, I just need a second. Sometimes I can't say I need a second because I'm so frustrated because when I was at work this morning, my admin did this thing or this client did this thing and it's frustrating me. And now I can't think about the thing because I don't have time for that. Right now, I just need a minute. And then when I get myself under control, then I can go to my wife and say, this morning, I didn't want to respond right away to this thing because I still had underlying things that were happening to me. that affected me, that literally diluted my vision. I wasn't looking at you as my wife. I was looking at you through the lens of what happened to me earlier. So now when conflict happens, I need to get myself under control. The next thing I want to do is address the situation. Whatever the thing is, let's talk about the thing. So what's going on? You don't like the way I said X. This thing bothered you because I forgot. This thing bothered you. How can we make sure, how can we make sure this never happens again? When you told me that you needed me to be home at whatever time, I was probably occupied. I was sending an email. I was reading an email, and I'm so sorry that I wasn't giving you my attention. So from now on, before you start telling me something important, can you make sure that you have my undivided attention? I can't say that I'm going to be perfect because you know that my life and my job relies on my phone. So I'm not on Instagram just scrolling. I'm actually working. So I need you to give me grace and say, Sam, I need your attention because this is important. So I can put my phone down and give you my attention. The next thing I need you to do in this particular example is let's come up with a calendar system. Like can you send me a calendar invite to remind me, not the day before and maybe an hour before? I can work with an hour. I just can't work with 10 minutes before, like how Apple automatically has that set. I can't work with 10 minutes. Now, how can we remediate this situation? I know I missed this thing. Is there a way that we can reschedule it so that we're both present, whatever the situation may be? And we talk through it. And I'm so sorry that I was not paying attention and that I missed this thing because I know it was important to you. Like, although I have to humble myself in those moments, it doesn't matter. That can be one situation or many other situations, but I need to be present. I need to accept the fact that maybe I dropped the ball. And even when it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility, I take responsibility for not being present and handling the situation. So now the conflict becomes resolved. It's addressed. It's not swept under the rug. And I put my attention on that because that's what's matter. That's what matters to my wife. And in that moment, she matters to me more than the conflict matters to me. So now we handle the conflict. She understands that we're on the same team and we can move forward and we come to a complete resolution. And the same thing goes for our kids. Whatever it requires them to feel seen and feel heard and feel understood to handle whatever conflict may come or arise. I'm going to address it, deal with it before I decide to move on. All right, guys, if this episode was helpful, again, thank you so much for tuning in, locking in with me. 7 Minutes with Sam on the D-League podcast. I am absolutely devoted to my development, and I want you to be devoted to yours. We are devoted to yours as well, but don't let us want it more for you than you want it for yourself. If this episode has been helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment for my people on YouTube. And the podcast listeners, thank you for tuning in on the audio, whether you're working out, driving in your car, going or coming. Thank you. Drop that 5-star comment, share it with somebody else, and I will see you on the next 7 Minutes with Sam episode.